Bangladesh's interim regime is finally acting not against Islamist mobs, not against radical leaders, but against India. Major protests broke out today outside Bangladeshi diplomatic missions. In response, Dhaka is scaling back services. We'll tell you how this internal issue became a bilateral one. Also on the show, what are the key challenges for India's economy in 2026? Why has Pakistan struck a weapons deal with Libya? What do we know about America's new class of warships? They're calling it the Trump class. And why is Elon Musk's grok linking Prime Minister Modi to the Epstein files? Meanwhile, China is raising the stakes in the nuclear race. They have loaded 100 long-range missiles in silos. We'll tell you why. And finally, we'll take a look at the top health trends of 2025. All this and more lined up. The headlines first. Russia's drone and missile strikes cut power across Ukraine. Fires broke out in several regions in the country. The large-scale attack comes amid a frigid winter. In recent days, Moscow has intensified its strikes on the port city of Odessa. Neighboring Poland scrambled jets to protect its airspace during the attack. The Syrian government and Kurdish forces ordered their troops to halt deadly clashes. The fighting erupted in Aleppo, killing at least 3 people. Several others were injured. The violence comes ahead of a deadline to integrate the US-backed and Kurdish-led forces into the Syrian army. Thailand rejects Cambodia's request to hold bilateral talks in a neutral country. The meeting was to negotiate an end to the border clashes which have reignited. More than 40 people have been killed and nearly 1 million have been displaced on both sides. The warring neighbours had agreed to negotiate truce terms this week. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar visits Sri Lanka and meets President Anura Kumara Dissanayake. New Delhi announces a $450 million reconstruction package for the cyclone-hit country. India has been playing a key role in relief efforts in the island nation through its Operation Sagar Bandhu. And Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese speaks with Israel's president. The phone call came 9 days after the Bondi Beach terror attack. 15 people died in the mass shooting in Sydney, which targeted the Jewish community. Albanese announced that he will invite the Israeli president to visit Australia. It started off as a domestic flashpoint, the killing of a radical student leader in Dhaka. 3 days later, it's become a bilateral flashpoint. It's become India versus Bangladesh. Diplomatic missions have been targeted, envoys have been summoned, and world powers are wading in. Let's look at what happened earlier today. Hindu groups in India organized protests outside Bangladeshi missions. The biggest protest was held in New Delhi. Hundreds of protesters gathered near the Bangladesh High Commission in New Delhi. The police had set up barricades, but the protesters breached them. Take a look at this. Thankfully, there was a strong police presence. Eventually, the cops managed to push back the protesters and prevented them from reaching the High Commission. And this was not just in New Delhi. Similar protests were organized in different parts of the country. This anger can be traced to last week. On Thursday night, a Bangladeshi student leader was declared dead. His name was Osman Hadi. He'd been shot by unknown gunmen in Dhaka earlier in the month. He succumbed to his injuries last week. What followed was a violent Islamist outburst. Major media houses were torched, a Hindu man was lynched, and his body was burnt. That incident has rallied Hindu groups in India. They're demanding protection for minorities in Bangladesh. Like I said, the Bangladesh High Commission was not affected by the protests, yet Dhaka is escalating the issue. This morning, they summoned India's High Commissioner in Bangladesh. They told him that these protests were premeditated violence and that the goal was to intimidate Bangladeshi diplomats. Dhaka has also scaled back its services in India. Visa centers in 3 cities have been shut: New Delhi, Agartala and Siliguri. If the protests continue, they plan to scale back their diplomatic presence, which basically means they will pull out some Bangladeshi diplomats from India. Frankly, this is a diversion tactic, a classic diversion tactic. What's happening in Bangladesh has nothing to do with India. It is their own internal failures. Politicians are getting shot because there is no law and order, because radical mobs are ruling the streets. In fact, yesterday there was another shooting. One more radical leader was shot by unknown gunmen. His name is Mutalib Shikdar. Yesterday we erroneously reported that he was killed in the attack, but Shikdar is alive and out of danger. He was shot in the head and he survived. Now Shikdar belongs to the NCP, that's the National Citizen Party, which is a radical anti-India group in Bangladesh. Some of their leaders are being assigned gunmen for their protection. Dhaka has identified 20 at-risk individuals, 20 individuals who are at risk. 6 of them are top leaders of the NCP. Also on this list are editors of Pratham Alo and the Daily Star. Both their offices had been torched last week. Like I said, all of this is Bangladesh's fault. It's an internal problem. This is happening because Muhammad Yunus failed to restore order. While mobs captured power, he obsessed over India. And the worst part? He is still not correcting course. Even now, his regime is trying to blame India. His home minister suggested that Osman Hadi's killer fled to India, but hours later, he had to change his statement. Do you know why? Because his own police rejected that claim. The Bangladesh police say there is no evidence that Osman Hadi's killer escaped to India, but the lies are being amplified by their political leaders. And all this chaos is attracting more eyeballs. Russia waded in yesterday. Their envoy in Dhaka is calling for a reset between India and Bangladesh.
The sooner you reduce the tensions, the better. Because historically, since 1971, when Bangladesh gained independence, it was mostly because of Indian help. And Russia also supported this in this regard. And shoulder to shoulder, India, Bangladesh, and Russia, we work together.
This is familiar territory for Moscow. They supported Bangladesh's liberation in 1971. In recent years, they have cooperated on defense and nuclear power. Clearly, Russia wants a stable India-Bangladesh equation. That's what Russia wants. But Yunus is not heeding Moscow's advice. He is busy talking to America. On Monday, Mohammad Yunus dialed the U.S. Special Envoy for South Asia. His name is Sergio Gore. He is also the U.S. Ambassador to India. Yunus updated Gore on the election preparation, and he assured him that polls would go on as announced. No delays, no setbacks. Again, the double standard is glaring because last week, India called for free and fair elections in Bangladesh. And do you know how Dhaka responded? They said they do not need India's advice. Yet the same government is updating the US on elections. It tells you how deep the animosity now runs. The question is, what happens next? Well, a lot depends on the investigation into Osman Hadi's killing. 10 people have been arrested so far, but the mastermind remains elusive. Unless he is caught, Dhaka will remain tense. Unless he is caught, Yunus will seek distractions with India. And frankly, anything could happen. A reduction in diplomatic presence, some sort of trade restrictions, maybe some border flashpoints. Anything is possible looking at this trajectory. India has displayed diplomatic maturity so far in handling Dhaka, but Yunus and company are really testing the limits. As we head into a new year, one of the things to watch out for would be India's economic growth. The trajectory is northward, but the challenges are also persistent. So how does 2026 look for India? India's central bank has released an assessment, that's the RBI or the Reserve Bank of India. It has released its latest State of the Economy report and it offers some valuable insights. We'll start with the big numbers. The growth rate remains strong. The RBI has highlighted the latest GDP numbers from July to September. India grew at 8.2%, which is the fastest pace of growth in 6 quarters. India remains among the world's fastest growing major economies. What's more encouraging is the fact that this growth is not driven by exports or government spending. The growth is not driven by exports or government spending. India's growth is driven by its people who are spending more and its businesses that are ramping up investments. In other words, private consumption is a key growth driver, especially in rural India. The RBI report discusses some trends. In November, key indicators showed strong momentum. More goods moved on Indian roads, consumers used more fuel, and digital payments picked up. Car sales are also climbing. Showrooms are reporting their strongest sales in more than a year, and there are two main reasons for this. First is the tax cuts. This year, the government reduced GST on most consumer goods. GST is the goods and services tax. It is India's main consumption tax. Earlier this year, the government cut this tax across the board, and the auto sector was a big beneficiary of GST cuts. Cars became more affordable, so the sales climbed. The second reason for increased auto sales is festive buying. The wedding season and the holiday demand boosted purchases, but this trend is not limited to automobiles. Overall, consumption is driving growth across sectors. And that's the assessment of the RBI. So the momentum is not a spike, it is sustained, and it's a sign of resilience. But will this momentum carry into 2026? There's a high chance it will. Let's look at what's working for the Indian economy. Inflation is low. It has fallen below 1%. This is according to the latest data from November, less than 1% inflation. Other indicators are holding steady too. Foreign remittances remain strong. So do India's services exports. Plus, the current account deficit has narrowed. Now, what is a current account deficit? Think of it as a country's balance sheet, a balance sheet with the world. It tracks how much India earns from abroad and how much it spends. When spending is higher than earning, there is a deficit. Now, India has been running a deficit for a while, but in the month of November, this deficit narrowed. It fell to $12.3 billion. All these positive indicators led to an interest rate cut. The RBI lowered rates a few weeks ago. It's a sign that the central bank wants to support growth by encouraging businesses to expand. You see, a rate cut is an effective tool for that. It makes loans cheaper for everyone. It pushes more money into the economy and it encourages borrowing. The RBI believes that this will help India maintain its growth rate. It has also upgraded its growth forecast for the current financial year. The Reserve Bank says India will grow at 7.3%. The earlier projection was 6.8%. That's a significant jump to 7.3%. But there are challenges ahead too, like tariffs, especially the trade war with the U.S. Indian exports still face that steep 50% tariff in the United States. It has effectively made the American market inaccessible for Indian exporters. Remember, India has signed 3 trade deals this year with the UK, with Oman and with New Zealand. But there's no breakthrough with the United States. And the tariff risk seems to be spreading now. Mexico made an announcement this month. It wants to raise tariffs on Indian and Chinese goods. Now, this is a red flag in the RBI's view. The central bank has warned that global disruptions can hit Indian exporters because India is not immune to global shocks. Look at the Indian rupee. The pressure has been showing on the Indian rupee. This year, the Indian currency has lost significant value. A few days back, the rupee was trading at 91 against the US dollar, and despite the recent recovery, the rupee remains Asia's worst performing currency this year. So the risks are quite clear. The RBI calls India's economy resilient, but that does not mean it can run on autopilot. Policymakers must continue to focus on the basics, which means keeping inflation low, maintaining debt at sustainable levels, ensuring healthy levels of investment, and a continued focus on reforms. Because India's resilience will be tested again in 2026. We are 2 days out from Christmas, but there's already been a Christmas miracle. Pakistan is selling weapons abroad. And I don't mean smuggling arms to terrorists or sneaking guns to insurgents. I'm talking about a bilateral weapons sale. That too worth $4 billion. So who's the desperate customer? It's Libya's Khalifa Haftar. Let me give you some context first. Libya is a country in northern Africa. It is ruled by 2 different camps. The eastern part of Libya is controlled by a man called Khalifa Haftar. He is a renegade military commander and he rules from Benghazi. The western part of the country is controlled by a United Nations recognized government, and this regime rules from Tripoli. Last week, Pakistan's Supreme Commander Asim Munir traveled to Benghazi. He met Khalifa Haftar and his deputies, and that's where this deal was signed. So what is Pakistan selling? Mostly Chinese weapons. Reports say 16 JF-17 fighter jets will be sold to Libya. 16 fighter jets. These are planes jointly developed by China and Pakistan. Also on the list are 12 Super Mushak planes. These are trainer aircraft developed by Pakistan. Reports say all these weapons will be sold in the next 2.5 years. And total cost? Well, some officials say $4 billion, others say it could be $4.6 billion. Either way, it is huge money for Pakistan. The question is, why is Libya turning to Islamabad of all? Why is Asim Munir indulging Haftar? And what is the broader geopolitical game here? Well, Khalifa Haftar's rivals have been making a series of moves. In July, they hosted a key advisor of U.S. President Donald Trump. Then in September, the Tripoli regime sent a team to Washington. They secured investments and deals in the United States. For what? To develop Libya's rich energy resources. Remember, Libya holds around 48 billion barrels of oil. The plan is to use that oil to attract American money, and this probably worried Khalifa Haftar, because his key allies are Russia and the UAE. Now, Russia is fighting a war in Ukraine and the UAE is not a defense supplier. Maybe that's why Khalifa Haftar turned to Pakistan. He shares two things with Asim Munir. One, both men are field marshals, and two, both have close ties to the Gulf states. Maybe that prompted this deal. Now to the second question. Why did Asim Munir oblige? Well, why wouldn't he? Pakistan needs all the money it can get, and $4 billion is gold dust for them. Plus, Khalifa Haftar has control over large oil fields, so maybe Pakistan is hoping for more oil exports in the future. Which brings us to the final question. What is the broader geopolitical game here? Well, for Libya and Pakistan, this is like a reset. Libya was ruled by Muammar Gaddafi from 1969 to 2011. For a brief period, he had great ties with Pakistan. This was in the 1970s. In fact, in 1974, Gaddafi visited Lahore. Pakistan celebrated him by renaming the city's cricket stadium. Even today, it's called the Gaddafi Stadium. And even bigger is the nuclear link. US officials believe that Libya funded Pakistan's nuclear program, that they paid $100 million to it. In return, Libyan scientists got nuclear know-how. So my point is simple. There is a history of close strategic cooperation between Libya and Pakistan. Things turned bitter after the 1970s, but yes, there is a history. And by reviving that, Asim Munir's goals are clear. He is trying to build an Islamic coalition around him. He is billing Pakistan as the defender of Islam. Look at his various moves. In April, Asim Munir sent a top military official to Nigeria, which is one of the largest Muslim nations in the world. Around 2,000 Nigerian troops are trained by Pakistan's military. In September, he sent a delegation to Qatar. The same month, he secured a mutual defense treaty with Saudi Arabia. The deal describes an attack on one as an attack on both. Basically, Pakistan promised to defend Saudi Arabia in case of an attack. In return, Riyadh has given Munir their highest civilian honor. Then in October, Asim Munir traveled to Jordan. He held defense talks with his Jordanian counterpart. And this month, in December, he traveled to Indonesia. All these moves have the same goal, to position Pakistan as a defender of Islamic nations, whether it's through treaties or training or weapons. Now, we won't tell these countries how to conduct their foreign policy, but just a small bit of advice. Do not fall for Asim Munir's military pitch. He claims the JF-17 jets shot down Rafale planes, that Chinese missiles destroyed Russian S-400 systems, all claims devoid of any truth. So be mindful of Pakistan's business pitches. As for India, the message is clear. Pakistan's diplomatic campaign must be countered. Munir is using his centralized powers to strike deals at record pace. He doesn't need parliamentary approvals. He doesn't need to consult anyone. If it helps him, if it works for him, Munir will do it. India, on the other hand, moves with caution. We put national priorities over personal interests. In the long run, India's approach will deliver, but in the short term, it should be wary of Pakistan's moves.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Pakistan alongside Bangladeshi Islamists in the heart of Dhaka, calling for the breakup of India, for the liberation of Kashmir. In Bangladesh, viewers, Islamist fury has been allowed a chilling free run. A free run that has brought out Hindi groups onto the streets here in India. You can see them. There they are, viewers, today. But the operative phrase here is Hindu groups. Yes, Hindu groups belonging mostly to the saffron folk. Indeed, viewers, when a Muslim is killed anywhere in the world, a familiar pattern follows. Hashtags trend within minutes, candle marches appear overnight, statements pour in from activists and academics, and politicians who claim moral authority over the idea of human rights. But when a Hindu is lynched, next door, or even in this country, when Islamist violence threatens India's own territorial integrity, that same ecosystem is suddenly missing in action. No outrage, no marches, only silence or worse, rationalization. Indeed, viewers, the Congress party's member of parliament has rationalized the lynching. What has he come out and said? He says attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh are a reaction to atrocities against Muslims in India. Situation in India and Bangladesh is the same. Viewers, if you ever wanted to give Muhammad Yunus a clean chit, here it is from Digvijay Singh, Member of Parliament, sworn, viewers, to serve our constitution, not the Republic of Bangladesh. And another senior Congress leader, Rashid Alvi, he also rationalizes. He says there is a fundamentalist government in Bangladesh and in India. In Bangladesh, Hindus are being attacked, and in India, mosques are being attacked. Muslims are being bulldozed. So everything presumably is okay, viewers. Even in 2019, India didn't stand as one. Deepu Das might not have been lynched had he had the option to seek citizenship in India. But the Citizenship Amendment Act, or the CAA, could have been his ticket to life, but the law was opposed by the very same ecosystem that lectures the country regularly on human rights. This entire ecosystem is missing in action, even though it was out on the streets bemoaning the death of Hamas and Hezbollah radicals. Look at those pictures, viewers. So Hezbollah radicals and terrorists you can come out for, but not against Islamists who are threatening the very idea of India. In Kolkata today, the police that stood by when Muslim mobs protested the Waqf bill today use their lathis to punish visibly anxious and peacefully protesting Hindu groups. Look at the way they were left, viewers. Beaten, bruised. Why? Because they were standing up for their own country. This is not about religion. This is about consistency. You cannot claim to stand for humanity only when it suits your politics. If outrage depends on the victim's identity, then it is not outrage at all. It is moral hypocrisy. If we claim to speak for humanity, then shouldn't we be speaking for all humanity? Because when a man begs for his life, or a people face an existential threat from a bigoted outlook, like they are today, viewers, in Bangladesh, and the world looks away, silence is complicity. And therefore, tonight we're going to ask some questions. And I'm going to open this up. And I'm going to first start with Syed Fazal Kashani, political analyst. Mr. Kashani, thank you very much for joining us here. I wish you were out on the streets joining the rest of the country in protesting what is going on in Bangladesh. But people in the Congress party, the wider ecosystem, are creating a narrative that, well, you know, it's okay because the same kind of minority bashing happens here, so this is a reaction in Bangladesh. The same thing that was said by Kashmiri politicians, by a whole stripe of Congress politicians, by this so-called left liberal ecosystem when recently the Red Fort attack happened, viewers. They said, well, radicalization, well, how do you stop it when Muslims are feeling persecuted? I want to ask you, sir, humanity is under attack. Are you going to still look for the religion of the victim to exercise your outrage? I cannot understand. Where is this moderate Muslim, this ummah of moderates? You see, yesterday, viewers, I attacked the government for doing little. Today, I have to ask questions of our own people. If we are not united, Mr. Kashani, in the face of what is an existential threat, perilously staring at us, when will we ever be? Are you going to still look for religion?
Well, Rahul, first of all, let's not give this a religious angle. If I talk about my religion, it clearly says that any innocent killed anywhere in the world is a murder of humanity. So whatever is happening in Bengal, Bangladesh, we all condemn it, and it shouldn't happen. But at the same time, I want to ask this to the government or the representatives of the central government, that what has the government done?
Donald Trump likes to put his name on everything, whether it's a think tank, a government institution, or even a warship. In fact, that's his latest obsession, American warships. The U.S. president has announced a new class of Navy battleships. They will be called the Trump class. Trump says these will be the biggest and the most powerful warships America has ever built. They will be capable of carrying nuclear missiles. At least that's the president's claim. But here's the reality. The U.S. has not built a battleship in decades. Its shipyards are already struggling with delays and cost overruns, and competition from China has been increasing. So what exactly is this about? Our next report explores.
These are bigger, but they will have 100 times they'll be 100 times the force, the power, and there's never been anything like these ships.
That is how President Donald Trump unveiled his latest vision for the United States Navy. A new class of warships and a new name, the Trump class.
For this exciting announcement of the
Announced from his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, Trump says these ships will anchor what he calls America's Golden Fleet.
These cutting-edge vessels will be some of the most lethal surface warfare ships. They will be actually the most ever built other than our submarines.
The plan starts with 2 ships, but Trump says the number could rise to as many as 25. The first ship already has a name, USS Defiant. On paper, these would be the largest U.S. surface warships built since World War II. They will be up to 880 feet long, will weigh between 30,000 and 40,000 tons, will be smaller than the old Iowa-class battleships, but will be designed around missiles, not heavy guns. They will carry hypersonic weapons, nuclear-capable cruise missiles, Tomahawk missiles, missile defense systems, and lasers. Trump says these ships will be built in America and that it will revive U.S. shipbuilding. But why is he pushing this now? Trump says the U.S. is falling behind China. Beijing already has the world's largest navy by ship numbers. U.S. defense officials have warned that American shipbuilding is too slow and costly. Trump believes this fleet is the answer. More ships, more firepower, and faster production. But the reality is more stark. The U.S. Navy has struggled to deliver new ships for years. The Constellation-class frigate program was scaled back after delays and cost overruns. The newest aircraft carrier, USS John F. Kennedy, is also reportedly years late. Shipyards are short on workers, and experts say building vessels this large would require reopening or expanding major dockyards. Besides, even crewing these ships could be a challenge. Then, there is also the question of strategy. Modern naval warfare increasingly favors smaller, dispersed platforms and unmanned systems. Large ships concentrate firepower, but they also concentrate risk. Still, for Trump, these ships are about more than strategy. They are symbols. He says they will project strength and restore American pride. But this announcement is not just about ships. It also fits a much wider pattern. Donald Trump is obsessed with putting his name on everything. Last week, the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts added Trump's name alongside John F. Kennedy's. Earlier this month, U.S. Institute of Peace renamed itself for Trump after his administration dismantled it. Reports also suggest a portrait of Trump may be featured on a commemorative $1 coin in honor of America's 255th Independence Day celebrations in 2026. The Trump-class warships take that thinking to the sea. For now, the Trump-class exists only on paper. No steel has been cut, no money has been approved by Congress, and no shipyard has been chosen. Whether these warships ever sail will depend on budgets, capacity, and time.
The Epstein files. You may have heard about them. In the United States, it's a major scandal. These files are documents linked to a convicted sex offender. His name was Jeffrey Epstein. The files link America's rich and powerful to him. They expose a sex trafficking and abuse network. The files have just been made public and all kinds of online claims are flying around. Some of them link India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the Epstein files. It is not a verified fact, but a mention taken out of context. And this is extremely problematic and dangerous. Tonight I'll tell you why. First, here's what happened. Users on X asked a question to Grok. Are Indian names mentioned in the Epstein files? That was the question. Now, Grok, as you know, is Elon Musk's AI chatbot. It is available on X, which was formerly Twitter. You ask Grok something and it replies, often verifying the information that you share. Now, when asked about Indian names in the Epstein files, this was Grok's response. I'm quoting, yes, recent Epstein file releases mention Indian or Indian origin names and Narendra Modi, Epstein's texts offering to arrange meetings via Bannon. Contexts are professional or strategic, no accusations of misconduct. This is what Grok said. Now, the Epstein files include thousands of names. There are lawyers, journalists, politicians, business figures, academics. Some are victims, some are witnesses, some are people mentioned in emails or calendars or casual conversations, and some names are simply there in passing. So being mentioned does not mean being accused, and that distinction is very, very important. On paper, Grok's answer sounds responsible. It says, and I'm quoting again, contexts are professional and strategic. But here's the problem. That same context is not explained enough. There is no distinction between a casual reference, someone's name in an email, or a third-party name drop. For that, you have to prod further, and some users did exactly that. They cross-questioned Grok. They asked about the context in which the name was mentioned. And that's when they got the full picture. I'll quote again from Grok's response. Based on recent Epstein file releases, Narendra Modi's name appears in 2019 emails when Jeffrey Epstein offered to broker a meeting between Modi and Steve Bannon for geopolitical discussions. No evidence links Modi to any wrongdoing in the documents. So that's what the mention was about. Jeffrey Epstein offered to set up a meeting between Steve Bannon and Prime Minister Modi. Steve Bannon was White House's chief strategist during Trump's first term. He wanted to meet the Indian Prime Minister. Epstein offered to set up a meeting. That's why the name comes up in an email. By any reasonable definition, that is not a mention in the Epstein files. It's like saying, I wrote an email to Donald Trump, so now we are pen pals. But Grok's response did exactly that. And it's not a first for the chatbot. Last week, there was a terrorist attack in Australia. 15 people were killed in a mass shooting on the Bondi Beach. There were videos of the gunmen doing the rounds. Users asked Grok to verify some of those videos. And you know what the chatbot said? Grok described it, and I'm quoting again, as a viral video, old viral video of a man climbing a palm tree in a parking lot, possibly to trim it. So you get the gist. And you may ask, what could Grok do better? Well, first things first, understand the context. In the current environment, finding mention in the Epstein files implies wrongdoing. If you're in it, it is assumed that you are one of the accused. So two things could have been done here. Grok could have said his name was there, but it had zero relevance. Or second, it could have not answered this. It could have said there was not enough context. Because this is the internet we're talking about. A single post here is enough to trigger a viral lie. And it ties into a bigger problem. Because AI is now being used for almost everything, to tackle misinformation, to decipher legal documents, to deliver breaking news and everything in between. And this is being done without any guardrails. You see, AI does not understand the harm its messages can cause. It understands text patterns. A name is there in the Epstein files, which means it is mentioned in the Epstein files. And that's the real danger here, because in stories like this, what you leave out can be just as powerful as what you say. The nuclear arms race is picking up speed. China is equipping itself with more nuclear missiles. A new report has emerged. It talks about an assessment by the Pentagon, which is now called the U.S. Department of War. They believe Beijing has loaded over 100 long-range missiles. These are intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. They have been placed across 3 new silo fields. These are located near China's northern border with Mongolia. The US knew about these silos, but for the first time they have an assessment of how many missiles have been placed. And all of this is happening as Washington is talking about denuclearization. Last month, US President Donald Trump made a pitch. He talked about a denuclearization plan with China and the US. Clearly, there are no takers for Trump's idea in Beijing. Here's a report.
The nuclear arms race is no longer theoretical. It's unfolding, and it now includes a rapid, large-scale build-up by China. News agency Reuters has released contents of a draft Pentagon report. It talks about how Beijing is adding more nukes. The report says China has likely loaded more than 100 intercontinental ballistic missiles, all of them placed across its 3 newest silo fields. This marks a significant step forward in China's nuclear expansion. Until now, the US had acknowledged these silo sites, but not the number of missiles inside them. This new report changes that. The missiles in question are DF-31s. These are long-range, solid-fueled missiles, and according to some claims, ready for Beijing's use. They have been deployed at China's new silo fields. They are located near China's northern border, close to Mongolia. This revelation comes days after Donald Trump made a suggestion. The US president said he may pursue a new denuclearization plan and involve China and Russia. But the Pentagon feels there's no willingness to engage from Beijing, just steady modernization of its arsenal. The numbers paint an alarming picture. As of last year, China's nuclear warhead count stood in the low 600s. But that pace is accelerating. The report says Beijing could have over 1,000 warheads by 2030. That would bring China closer to the American and Russian stockpiles. Beijing has pushed back against this narrative. It insists that China maintains a defensive posture, that it keeps its nuclear forces at the minimum level needed for security, and it abides by a moratorium on nuclear testing. Beijing also says it follows a no first-use policy.
China firmly adheres to its policy of not being the first to use nuclear weapons, upholds a self-defense and defensive nuclear strategy, and always maintains its nuclear capabilities at the lowest level necessary for national security. It does not engage in a nuclear arms race with any other country. China has been actively participating in the review process of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons and the Nuclear Weapon States Mechanism meeting, maintaining dialogue with all parties on nuclear arms control issues.
But the Pentagon isn't convinced. It says the missile expansion is part of a wider military plan, one that includes being able to fight and win a war over Taiwan by 2027. The US believes China is refining its options to take Taiwan by brute force. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. The New START treaty between the US and Russia, signed in 2010, is set to expire in under 2 months. It currently limits the number of nuclear warheads and delivery systems the US and Russia can deploy. If this treaty is allowed to lapse, there will be no binding arms control deal left in place. Experts warn this could trigger a 3-way nuclear race, one that involves the US, Russia, and now China.
Every night on this show, we break down the news. We discuss the context and the consequences, but on some days, the story does not need words. One picture says it all. And today is one of those days. First, take a look at this picture, this visual from Odisha. (8,500 candidates, 183 positions, and 1 exam on an airstrip. The Odisha police had a job opening for 183 posts in the Home Guard. More than 10,000 people applied for the job. 8,500 could sit for the exam. 8,500 people, that's 46 people competing for one position. Now, the Odisha police did not know that there would be such a big rush, that so many people would apply for this job. There wasn't a big enough exam hall. So there were fears of papers leaking or favoritism, which is why they decided to get all the candidates together, and that's why an airstrip was chosen to conduct the test. It became the exam hall for this test. Now you may think, why the rush? Why are so many people applying for this job? Is this a high-paying post? The thing is, it's not. The Home Guards get paid around 18,000 rupees a month. That's around 600 rupees a day. The job has long hours. It involves constant policing, and yet thousands of people applied for this post. And this is not about Odisha alone. Last year, Air India had listed around 2,200 job vacancies. More than 25,000 job seekers gathered at Air India's office. It almost led to a stampede. In 2024, hundreds of people were seen at a private company's recruitment drive. The opening was for just 10 positions. Such pictures often mean just one thing: unemployment is high. Let's look at the numbers first. Around 30% graduates in India cannot find a job. 30% graduates cannot find a job. It's among the highest rates globally. And what about overall unemployment? In November, that number fell to 4.7%. The government says it has created 125 million jobs in the last 10 years. RBI data shows the job market grew by 6% in 2024. And let's not forget the GDP growth. India's economy grew by 8.2% in the last quarter. Basically, all the economic signs are good. Then why this mad rush for jobs? Why is the job market distressed despite India's economic growth? Well, there are a bunch of reasons. Number one, India's population has grown fast. Millions of people have entered the workforce, but jobs have not grown at the same speed. So you have growth, but not enough employment. Economists call this jobless growth. Factor number two, a lot of India's growth comes from capital-heavy sectors. Machines, automation, technology, they increase output, but they don't always increase jobs. Factor number three, uncertainty. Private sector jobs can disappear overnight. Startups can shut down. Companies often restructure. But government jobs often do not face such uncertainties. And that is why a home guard job looks so attractive. Not because it pays well, but because you are guaranteed the payment every month. And factor number 4, a gap between education and skills. Companies say they cannot find skilled workers. Young people say they cannot find jobs. Clearly, something is not matching. Classrooms are teaching one thing, the market wants another, and the gap is growing. So how can we solve this crisis? First, India needs more labor-intensive industries. I'm talking about manufacturing, textiles, electronics, jobs that hire a lot of people. Second, small and medium businesses matter. They employ most Indians. When these businesses struggle, jobs quietly disappear. And last, education must move faster. Skills need constant updating. What you learn today may not help you 5 years from now. And that's the reality. And then there's women's participation too. India's female labor force participation is only 32%. When women work, households earn more. So we need to work on that, because look at the world around us. The world is aging, workforces are shrinking, India is the exception. Roughly half of our population is under 25 years of age. That's a massive advantage, at least on paper. Because if we get this right, India's demographic dividend can power its future. If we don't, this power will become a pressure point. And that's a risk that no growing economy can afford.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Pakistan alongside Bangladeshi Islamists in the heart of Dhaka, calling for the breakup of India, for the liberation of Kashmir. In Bangladesh, viewers, Islamist fury has been allowed a chilling free run. A free run that has brought out Hindi groups onto the streets here in India. You can see them. There they are, viewers, today. But the operative phrase here is Hindu groups. Yes, Hindu groups belonging mostly to the saffron folk. Indeed, viewers, when a Muslim is killed anywhere in the world, a familiar pattern follows. Hashtags trend within minutes, candle marches appear overnight, statements pour in from activists and academics, and politicians who claim moral authority over the idea of human rights. But when a Hindu is lynched, next door, or even in this country, when Islamist violence threatens India's own territorial integrity, that same ecosystem is suddenly missing in action. No outrage, no marches, only silence, or worse, rationalization. Indeed, viewers, the Congress party's member of parliament has rationalized the lynching. What has he come out and said? He says attacks on Hindus in Bangladesh are a reaction to atrocities against Muslims in India. Situation in India and Bangladesh is the same. Viewers, if you ever wanted to give Muhammad Yunus a clean chit, here it is from Digvijay Singh, Member of Parliament, sworn, viewers, to serve our constitution, not the Republic of Bangladesh. And another senior Congress leader, Rashid Alvi, he also rationalizes. He says there is a fundamentalist government in Bangladesh and in India. In Bangladesh, Hindus are being attacked, and in India, mosques are being attacked. Muslims are being bulldozed. So everything presumably is okay, viewers. Even in 2019, India didn't stand as one. Deepu Das might not have been lynched had he had the option to seek citizenship in India. But the Citizenship Amendment Act, or the CAA, could have been his ticket to life, but the law was opposed by the very same ecosystem that lectures the country regularly on human rights. This entire ecosystem is missing in action, even though it was out on the streets bemoaning the death of Hamas and Hezbollah radicals. Look at those pictures, viewers. So Hezbollah radicals and terrorists you can come out for, but not against Islamists who are threatening the very idea of India. In Kolkata today, the police that stood by when Muslim mobs protested the Waqf bill, today use their lathis to punish visibly anxious and peacefully protesting Hindu groups. Look at the way they were left viewers, beaten, bruised. Why? Because they were standing up for their own country. This is not about religion. This is about consistency. You cannot claim to stand for humanity only when it suits your politics. If outrage
Our next story is about Greenland, an Arctic island that Donald Trump wants. Trump says the U.S. needs Greenland for its national security, so he has appointed a special envoy to work on this. And this has triggered a diplomatic dispute with Denmark. Why Denmark? Because Greenland is a self-governing territory within Denmark. It runs its own domestic affairs, but defense and foreign policy are still handled by Denmark, and Denmark says Greenland is not for sale. The island's leaders say their future will be decided by their people. But Trump remains undeterred, and this is not the first time he's doing this. He tried to buy Greenland during his first term as president too. That proposal was rejected. He started talking about it when he took office for the second time, and now he has appointed a man to push his agenda. Here's a report.
We need Greenland for national security, not for minerals.
That statement has reignited a diplomatic fight between the United States and Denmark and has pushed Greenland back into the global spotlight. President Donald Trump has appointed a new special envoy to Greenland. And with that move, he has revived his long-standing ambition to bring the Arctic island under U.S. control. The envoy is Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. Trump says Landry will, quote-unquote, lead the charge. That phrase alone alarmed Denmark and Greenland. This is not Trump's first attempt. During his first term, he openly suggested buying Greenland. Denmark and Greenland both rejected the idea. At the time, Trump framed it as a real estate deal. Now the argument has changed. This time, Trump says it is about security.
And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it.
Greenland's strategic value is undeniable. The island sits between North America and Europe. It lies on key Arctic sea routes and hosts a U.S. military base as well as a missile warning radar system. As climate change melts Arctic ice, new shipping lanes are opening. And with that, competition is also growing. China and Russia are expanding their presence in the region. That is the backdrop Trump points to. But the political reality is firm. Greenland is a self-governing territory within Denmark. It controls its own domestic affairs, while defense and foreign policy remain Danish responsibilities. Greenland's population is small, about 57,000 people. Opinion polls show most favor eventual independence from Denmark, but they do not favor becoming part of the United States. Denmark says that Trump's move crosses a red line and violates basic principles of sovereignty. Copenhagen has summoned the U.S. ambassador. It has also called the appointment unacceptable. Besides, Greenland's government has also pushed back. It says the island will decide its own future and rejects any attempt to take control from outside.
National borders and the sovereignty of states are rooted in international law. You cannot annex other countries, not even with an argument about international security. Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders, and the US shall not take over Greenland.
The European Union has also closed ranks behind Denmark.
Preserving the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark, its sovereignty, and the inviolability of its borders is essential for the European Union.
Washington insists the envoy role is informal. It says it is about advancing U.S. interests in the Arctic, not annexation. Still, Trump has not ruled out applying pressure or using force. For now, no borders have changed, and no agreements have been signed. But the message is clear. Greenland is no longer just an Arctic island. It is now a geopolitical flashpoint.
2025 changed how the world thinks about health. This was not the year of miracle cures or extreme detoxes, no 6-week transformation videos. Instead, health became practical. It became personal. And the focus was on the long term. So as the year winds down, here's a look at the top 5 health and wellness trends of this year and how they will shape 2026. Number 1, weight loss drugs went mainstream. Weight loss drugs like Ozempic came about in 2023. Since then, they have changed the world, and this year they became mainstream. Around 20 million people the world over now use weight loss drugs. 20 million people. 1 in 8 American adults is taking it. In India, drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro have entered the market, so the numbers will only keep rising, and it is affecting every aspect of life. Take restaurants, for example. They are shrinking their portions. Why? Because taking weight loss drugs impacts your hunger. You feel less hungry. So restaurants are introducing smaller meals to accommodate those who are on weight loss drugs. And it's not just injections. The U.S. FDA has now approved a weight loss pill. FDA is America's food and drug regulator. They have approved a new pill version of Wegovy. That's a weight loss drug made by Novo Nordisk. It is the first such pill of its kind to get a regulatory approval, and this makes weight loss even more accessible. You don't need a jab. You can just have a pill. By 2026, the pill could be the default option for many people. And here's the catch. While the hype is huge, the science is still catching up. There's a lot we don't fully know about long-term side effects, and that's the real story for next year. Not just who gets these drugs, but how safe they really are. Trend number 2. Sleep becomes the new cool. 7 hours of sleep is considered the global standard, but 2.5 billion people don't sleep as much. They don't get 7 hours of sleep. 2.5 billion people. Hotels are hiring sleep specialists. They're getting special beds, and rooms have blackout curtains, so you just check in and doze off. That's the plan. The sleep tourism market is valued at over $600 billion. Analysts predict it will cross $1 trillion by 2028. Trend number 3, focus on protein and fiber maxing. Protein has become the new buzzword. Everything has protein, from your chips to snacks to popcorn. The global protein industry is worth over $50 billion, 50. It could double by 2034. And it's not just protein that's in focus. Fiber too is the talk of the town. They're calling it fiber maxing. What does that mean? It is about adding whole grains, lentils and vegetables to your diet. So more fiber in your diet to promote healthy digestion. Number 4, health goes high tech. Now, we already had wearables, but it's no longer just about tracking your steps. They track everything from your sleep to your heart health to your muscle recovery. They help people track their health daily. And then there's artificial intelligence. It has stepped into hospitals. But it's not replacing doctors, it is helping them. So scans are faster, reports are being delivered sooner, and it helps reduce mistakes. Trend number 5, focus on longevity. There's a big focus on aging and immortality. People want to live longer. In 2025, the anti-aging and longevity industry was worth $25 billion. By 2035, it could hit $63 billion. And one big reason for that is the aging demographic. 2.1 billion people will be over 60 by 2050. 2.1 billion people will be more than 60 years old by the year 2050. That has boosted the demand for biohacking and genetic interventions. Tech billionaires are pouring money into anti-aging startups. By some estimates, they have invested over $12 billion already. So expect living longer to become the talk of the town in 2026. So what did this year teach us about health? That there's no magic formula, no one-size-fits-all fix. Instead, health became a series of small daily choices. A pill for some, better sleep for others, more protein, more fiber, smarter tech, and a bigger conversation about aging. 2025 made one thing clear: health is no longer a trend, it's a habit with long-term fixes.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jam. Well, big breaking news coming in on the top of the bulletin. On 26 December, the DGCA panel will submit its report to the ministry on the IndiGo crisis and the chaos which engulfed the entire nation. As per sources, it's a multi-page comprehensive report that has been prepared, listing all the challenges, be it the human resource crunch, pilot rostering and technical aspects. A 4-member committee appointed by the DGCA has been granted an extension until Friday, the 26th of December, to submit its report on the recent IndiGo flight disruptions. That is the big piece of news that's coming in. To get more details and a deep dive into the DGCA report and the investigation into the disruptions which gripped the entire nation earlier this month, I'm joined by my colleague Pal Mehta on the broadcast. Pal, over to you.
Yes, a very important development coming to the fore, Ayushman, because the country is waiting to see what comes out of that investigation that has been ordered into what IndiGo really did, to passengers across the entire country for 3 days in a row. That report is being compiled right now just as we speak, and that report is going to be presented to the ministry on Friday. In all probability is what our sources have indicated to us. It is going to be a comprehensive report which will talk about not just the aspect in terms of human resources and pilot rostering, but it will also focus on a lot of technical aspects and technical details, and therefore the ministry is expected to get that report on Friday is what we are told by our sources. Let's wait and see what the outcome really is, because there was a nationwide outrage that was actually caused because of the indication that IndiGo had done what they had really done. And that is something which was, people want to really understand from that investigation what exactly did IndiGo really do as far as this is concerned.
Right. Thank you, Payal, for getting us that update. But stay with us. We're getting another update from the Civil Aviation Ministry. When amid the monopoly debate, the Aviation Minister has stated, and I quote, "Over the last 1 week, we are pleased to have met teams from new airlines aspiring to take wings in Indian skies, Shank Air, Al Hind Air and Fly Express." While Shank Air has already got the NOC from the ministry, Al Hind Air and Fly Express have received their NOCs this week. So Payal continues to be with us on the broadcast. So Payal, some good news when it comes to the aviation sector. One of the big debates from the IndiGo fiasco has been the monopolistic control of the carrier when it comes to India's skies. But as Ram Mohan Naidu had earlier even stated that the